I don't have to say there will be very severe consequences.
We got some breaking news here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we are starting to know why Mark Carney isn't getting a deal, why he didn't get a deal with Donald Trump. There's a couple of reasons here. Hoekstra, the U.S. ambassador to Canada, who went on Jasmine Lane's show, great interview, really revealed a lot. Well, he just went on Global News and revealed even more. And on top of that, there's a new report coming out that's revealing one of the major negotiating pieces that Mark Carney will not give up. And now we have an idea of what Mark Carney is protecting. Let's jump into this. We got this one from Nanos. So some polling data here showing support for financial aid for steel and aluminum companies affected by U.S. tariffs. We're seeing about 74% of people either somewhat or in favor of financial support for this industry. And we've got about 22% of Canadians who say no support. We shouldn't be supporting companies during this time. With that, we've got this one from Blacklock's reporter here. So Mark Carney and Francois Philippe Champagne have launched their counterattack to China and China's increase on canola. And what has Champagne done? He's added an additional 25% tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum. That's his retaliation. Like come on, guys. They're giving $1 billion to China to build 3 Canadian ferries made out of Chinese steel, and then they're going to impose an additional 25% on steel and aluminum from China. This is so dumb. Pull that contract. And better yet, why is Mark Carney not wanting to meet with Xi Jinping and work out a trade deal? It's almost like they planned this together. You know, Bruce Flatt, the CEO of Brookfield, went to go meet with top business leaders once Mark Carney became prime minister. It's right here. There's Bruce Flatt, CEO of Brookfield Asset Management, right there. March 23rd, 2025. He's meeting with Chinese Vice Premier He Lefeng, also a member of the Chinese Political Bureau of the Communist Party. This is one of Xi Jinping's top guys. Bruce Flatt's right there on March 23rd. Mark Carney announces the election on the exact same day. This is not a coincidence. What is going on here? Mark Carney refuses to negotiate with Xi Jinping, and you've got stuff like this that lines up. Got this one here, a 10 million shortfall. Where did the money go? So coming from the Toronto Star, Toronto area real estate brokerage shuttered due to financial mismanagement affecting 2,400 agents. It says there's a significant shortfall of 10 million in the iPro Realty Limited accounts. The same story here over on this one here, Ontario Local News. Quite something when a real estate company goes out of business. These companies never go out of business because real estate is a cash cow. If you're even half decent as a realtor, you make a lot of money. So what happened here is the question. It says Mississauga-based real estate company is shutting down operations in Ontario due to financial mismanagement. It doesn't say. Got this one from Marty up north. We got international merchandise trade balance here. We're seeing a big drop here. This red line, the total trade balance. As he says, this is what losing a trade war looks like. This is Canada-US trade war balance. And while as we see this graph dropping off a cliff, there's no longer balance. These dark blue lines here are balanced with countries other than the United States, and the blue is balanced with the United States. That's why you're seeing this huge drop off. Moving ahead, we're starting to get a glimpse of why Mark Carney did not get a deal with Donald Trump. First up, we've got this. U.S. State Department targets Canada's Online News Act in Human Rights Report. It says here, Online News Act, which requires Meta and Google to compensate news publishers for their use of their content, is cited in a section of the report covering freedom of the press. So basically, the Online News Act here is trying to force companies to pay them. Google has agreed to pay, I believe it was like $100 million. Yes, right here, $100 million, where Facebook said no. So that's why we don't have Canadian news on Facebook. A lot of things like updates on wildfires, you can't get them on Facebook now because of this. It says here, the U.S. is determined to crush 2 important pieces of Canadian legislation, the Online News Act and the Online Streaming Act. Their end game is clear, said Carleton University International Affairs professor Fen Hampson. Last week, a group of U.S. Republicans urged the Trump administration to push Canada to eliminate the Online Streaming Act. The Online Streaming Act would be forcing companies like Netflix, these online streaming companies, to have more Canadian content on their streaming platforms, like mandated. It's Bill C-11 passed in 2023. So the Trump administration, Republicans want to get rid of the Online Streaming Act and this Online News Act. This is 2 ways that the liberals are able to control us. And Republicans in America, Donald Trump, are trying to free us from this totalitarian control they're imposing over us. So it makes a lot of sense now. They've been negotiating this, and the liberals saying, no, we like this control over Canadian citizens. We don't want to get rid of this stuff. And that's where this stalemate is. But that's not all. We got Pete Hoekstra here on Global News. Listen to this. This one here, it says U.S. envoy to Canada says that Canadian politicians have attacked Trump personally.
Working through that process, trying to figure out exactly how that looks. Some Canadian politicians have decided that they will attack the president personally. They will attack people of on his economic team, his negotiating team. They will attack them personally, not on the policy, but them personally. Again, that is a Canadian decision. All we do is respond to it. The Canadians have indicated that, by imposing as a retaliatory tariff, they've put some in place, but then they also started putting tariffs on CUSMA products, products that are protected under the Canadian-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. We haven't done that, but Canada has decided that, that's fair game. We will, call into question CUSMA.
So if you've watched Jasmine Lane's interview, he points out that Mark Carney and the Liberals have been violating CUSMA, where the Americans have not been. And these personal attacks, who are they coming from? I mean, you can throw out a whole bunch of names. I mean, obviously, Justin Trudeau was attacking Trump for years. He's blasted Pierre Poilievre so many times, calling him Trump light and Trump mega, and we don't want that kind of politics in Canada, and yada, yada, yada. There is so many times the Liberals have blasted Donald Trump, saying, his awful type of politics and all that kind of stuff, direct attacks. You could probably find sound bites from 15 different Liberals. You've also got Table Salt here pointing out David Eby and Doug Ford. They both have done it the same as well. Turns out Donald Trump doesn't like to be humiliated. They knew this going into this. They probably did this from the start. They wanted this trade war. They wanted all of this to blame their dirty record on, their awful record that's destroying Canada, because they got nothing else. And Canadians fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. We've got this from Donald Trump, calling both Canada and Mexico horrible.
Remember when Joe Biden used to always go, I need legislation. I had no legislation. I just said we're closing the borders, and the whole world understood it because they respect your country again. They really respect this country again. They didn't respect it. When he said it, it didn't mean anything. But now they know it meant a lot. And Mexico does what we tell them to do, and Canada does what we tell them to do, because we have the two borders. We have the northern border, the southern border, and they were both horrible. But now it's some people say it's a miracle.
I mean, you can't really deny that. I mean, when you got Mark Carney and his team negotiating, yeah, they are horrible.
And yet our country's taking in tens of billions of dollars and trillions of dollars, actually trillions of dollars in tariffs. And you know all about it. It's been amazing. They say, why are we taking in so much money? Last week they found $29 billion and they couldn't figure out where it came from. I said, check the tariff shelf. And they said, how did you know that's where it came from? We're taking in billions and even trillions of dollars in tariffs paid by other countries who, frankly, were taking advantage of us for many, many years. And they were doing that to us, but our people didn't know it. We didn't have smart business people.
So from the numbers I've seen, it is not trillions of dollars that they're taking in yet. Billions, yes, they are taking in billions. But this money is not coming from these countries. It's coming from Americans paying a tax to the government. That is what a tariff is. In theory, what this is supposed to do is incentivize companies to move to America so they don't have to have this penalty when it comes into the country. In theory, it sounds like a good idea, but we'll have to see if this actually pans out. That's not all those. He goes on to say Canadian media's prime sport is beating up Donald Trump every day. If this guy is saying this is the U.S. ambassador to Canada, and this is not coming from Trump. Obviously, Trump has been very vocal about this to his team. So the fact it's coming from him says a lot.
Majority of your business community that has business relationships with the U.S., they've been relatively quiet. And your media, okay, I mean, their prime sport, okay, is beating up Donald Trump every day. So no, I'm not surprised by those numbers.
Not surprised?
No, I'm a politician, okay? If I were in a riding, and everybody in that riding, was trashing a candidate, they had no support from any political party. They had no support from their business community. The media was piling on. It's kind of like, wow, 15%, Mr. President, that's not bad. But the important thing here is not the popularity of the president is the president delivering on the promises that he made to the American people for increasing prosperity in America, making their communities safer and more secure. That is what's driving this president. The promises that he made to the American people and implementing the policies that he believes will deliver those results.
This is quite something here. So Trump is pissed off that the media, the major media here, we all know, CBC, CTV, I mean, he's on global here, taking shots at Donald Trump on a daily basis, Toronto Star, all of these media. You add in the Online Streaming Act, the Online News Act, and the Digital Service Tax. So digital service tax is gone, but you still have these other two things. Donald Trump and Republicans don't want to have this nasty negative media and this media control in Canada. They're trying to free the media in Canada, and the Liberals will not give it up. That is something. And no wonder they're not going to give it up. They would rather us suffer with tariffs than give that up, give up control over us. They've worked so hard to have this control over us. They don't want to give that up. This is unbelievable. It's not only Liberals at risk of losing jobs. We're seeing the auto sector getting hammered in America, but is that only temporary? Trashing Trump really is a sport in Canadian media. They spend so much time trashing Trump and zero time critiquing Canadians' leadership or policies. The fact that I'm one of the few that actually digs up Mark Carney's conflicts of interest day after day after day, and where's the media? They don't dig into this stuff. They have armies of people to do this stuff. They should have 10 times the results that I have, and they have nothing. They don't want to dig into Mark Carney's conflicts, to all his corruption and scandal, because they're getting that cash cow from the Liberals. Mainstream media is not speaking for Canadians. They are all paid propaganda peddlers. There's mixed reactions here in the comments, whether you like Donald Trump or not. The fact that the Canadian media is helping the Liberals, and the Liberals want to have control over the media and control over the narrative of what happens in Canada is draconian. No Liberal should want that. Obviously, no Conservative wants that. No other independent, NDP, Green, or any other Canadian should want that. We should have free press, freedom of speech, and we shouldn't have draconian rule over the people. So moving ahead, we've got Donald Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, trying to end this conflict.
Live look at the White House this hour as U.S. President Donald Trump prepares for his high-stakes meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow. On the eve of that summit, Ukraine's president is in the U.K. meeting with the Prime Minister in a show of solidarity. Now, that visit follows Volodymyr Zelensky's virtual meetings yesterday with Donald Trump and European leaders. Now, Starmer's office says tomorrow's summit in Alaska presents a, quote, viable chance to make progress as long as Russia takes action to prove that it's serious about peace. And Trump says he will prioritize a ceasefire in Ukraine during tomorrow's meeting with Putin and had this stern warning.
I don't have to say there will be very severe consequences.
That was directed at Putin if the Russian president isn't serious about negotiating tomorrow. In Moscow today, Putin met with senior ministers and security officials ahead of tomorrow's summit, and we are now learning that both Trump and Putin are expected to hold a joint news conference after their meeting again tomorrow. With me now to talk more about this is Andrew Rasule.
So Donald Trump doesn't want to be embarrassed anymore. Putin's already done it to him. He said one thing and then went behind his back and then just attacked Ukraine again. Donald Trump wants that Nobel Peace Prize for ending all these conflicts. I think he's had his hand in at least 4 or 5 so far. So this is going to be interesting because Putin is in a good position against Ukraine right now, but he has to kneel. Otherwise, Donald Trump, he's going to do something. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be rolling in the pow-pows, but he may put sanctions or something on Russia to further crush it.
Who is a retired official at the Department of National Defense and fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Good afternoon. Let me ask you, let me start with this. What's your read and your take? We've heard lots of different ones leading up to tomorrow and this summit that Trump and Putin are going to have. What is your expectation realistically for what's going to happen at this meeting in Alaska tomorrow?
The meeting has been very carefully managed. The fact that they've announced a joint press conference following their working lunch suggests that both sides are confident that they will have deliverables, and the deliverables will probably focus on domestic, like bilateral U.S. and Russian matters, business interests, possible arms control discussions about the START and INF. So I think they're confident they'll have something positive to say. As far as the Ukrainian situation goes, I think they will be modest in their perspective as to where they're going. But I don't think there will be a showdown, and nor will there be any deal or solution to the war. It'll be more of looking ahead, looking at further meetings, possibly eventually a trilateral with Zelensky, Trump, and Putin, but that really is way down the road still.
Yeah, and there's been more talk about that from Donald Trump, who is, getting ahead of himself, talking about that possibility at some point. Now,
if they're lining up a press conference afterwards and they haven't even met yet, they, as he mentioned, deliverables. They want to come out and say, like, okay, he's agreed to pull back everything. We're going to have a ceasefire for 1 month, whatever it may be. Something's going to come out of this. And if something doesn't come out of this, then Trump is going to be even more pissed off, and this will be even worse for Vladimir Putin. So something is going to happen here, good or bad. So a couple of days ago, I showed a couple of these hokey, cheesy statues, Indian statues in Brampton. One of them was in Mississauga. Like, these things are massive and they're ugly, like some gaudy thing you'd see out of Vegas. Well, it turns out there's another one here, 55-foot Hanuman. We can't have that music once again, but just wait for it. No. What do we got, Poseidon? What is this? Come on. There's a guy sitting in the hair. Why? We don't want Canada to become this ugly. Oh, come on. Look at this thing. It's so big. How does this pass bylaw? Isn't there a city bylaw? No ugly statues allowed? You can't have giant statues. Surely it must be somewhere in a bylaw. Where do they get the money from? Yeah, so much wasteful spending here. Yeah, meanwhile, monuments like Sir John A. Macdonald, Edgar Ryerson, and Sir Winston Churchill have faced removal, vandalism, or relocation due to cancel culture or woke activism.